This is your World War III update. Crypto is a complete and utter bloodbath. People are going to start jumping out of windows soon. 25% from its highs. Bitcoin is crashing precipitously. And of course, as one of the most high-risk assets and not at all a store of value, or at least not historically yet, it is a canary in the coal mine for what's about to happen, because now you're seeing tech sell off as we did today. The Nasdaq down 8% from its highs. We're talking about trillions of dollars wiped off the map. I warned people on Monday that there was the perfect storm, a convergence of negative indicators in the market that were predicting that we are most certainly at the top. At the very least, we're at the top, and we're likely on the way down. Now, I also told you that the Epstein thing would be a nothing burger, but it actually exceeded my expectations in that they turned it into this really trivializing display of social media influencers dancing. Yeah, that's where we're at. If only I would have had that for my idiocracy montage. And what else did Nate get right this week? Could Nate have gotten right the complete 180 that Donald Trump has done on Ukraine? Nobody could have seen that coming. I thought this was the Prince of Peace. Has he extended all the sanctions on Russia for another year? Oh yeah, I guess he did that. Has he invited Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister of England, or the United Kingdom, in order to allow Starmer a platform to say that he's going to put troops in Ukraine, as we're going to hear Starmer say today? Yes, he did that too. Has he at all restrained Ukraine in any way, and does he continue to ship them weapons despite all of this feigning aggression that he is doing in his negotiations? Yeah, every single thing is a direct continuation of Biden. But you know what I have to deal with every single day in the comment section is these obtuse, mouth-breathing cretins, okay, who are just so deranged in their own way. They have Trump worship syndrome. You see, if you actually go back and watch my videos, you'll notice that I've never casted any real aspersions on Trump. I've never denigrated his character like a lot of people do. I've criticized the fact that a lot of people think that this guy is going to solve all the problems when he's not. I've criticized his negotiation style, and I've criticized for people being naive to the fact that he is not going to fix all our problems, but that's usually the extent of it. I criticize him in the same way that I criticize Joe Biden. But unfortunately, there's a lot of really stupid, low IQ people who I'm trying to purge from the channel because they just don't get it. This is a uniparty system. And all the guy has done right now is just a bunch of superficial thing. Okay, he did the transgender thing. Yay, we all applaud, you know, boys not beating up girls. That's great. He did the changing the name thing. There's all this Doge stuff, which is still in the courts. We don't know if that's going to materialize into anything. Supposedly, we're supposed to learn about the drones and Epstein and all this stuff. But what do we get? Books, binders full of redacted information, okay? Everything I have said is happening. So anyways, I'm rather disillusioned, as you can see today, but it is what it is. When you're as right as I am about all of this stuff, you know, from the pandemic, I predicted the riots before that happened, I predicted the wildfires, I predicted the war, predicted the Iranian conflict, gold prices rising. I've been on that since, you know, the mid-1500s. I've predicted things like drafting immigrants, this Epstein nothing burger, you know, the tariffs being just a ruse in order to buy time, and how it had nothing to do with fentanyl and the border, which it clearly hasn't anymore. I mean, you name it. And every single aspect of this war up until this point, I have predicted to a T. And I'm telling you right now, okay, here's my big next prediction. Are you ready? Things are going to spiral out of control with Russia this year, because Trump's impetuous style is going to reach an end point. He's trying to delay and temporize right now so he can postpone the hard decisions that need to be made. All the while, the Russian media is playing along with this. And you have some foolish people who are very outspoken pundits in the space who have been saying that the Ukrainians are done since like March of 2022. They've been saying the same thing. Well, they're finished. The Ukrainians are finished. They've been saying the same shit, and now they're buying what the White House is saying. And I just can't believe it, because here's what Keir Starmer said today.
Unfair that Ukraine will help shape, that's backed by strength, to stop Putin coming back for more. I'm working closely with other European leaders on this, and I'm clear that the UK is ready to put boots on the ground and planes in the air to support a deal, working together with our allies, because that is the only way that peace will last.
What was that?
Boots on the ground and planes. It's clear that the UK is ready to put boots on the ground and planes in the air to support a deal.
This is a plan they've had. What people don't realize is that this is a plan they had a long time ago. Okay, this is probably 2 years old. The first I heard about it and talked about it was almost a year ago to today. If you go back, it was a couple series of videos. I was the first channel that leaked this information. I was not, I didn't get it from the horse's mouth, but I was 1 degree removed from it. And I told you that this was the plan, to put UK troops on the ground. Now, the logistics of that, are they going to be able to do it? Do they have the manpower to do it? Some people don't think so. But remember, they've been on a recruiting blitz as of late, and they're going to try to draft the immigrants. That's going to be the carrot that gets dangled. Let's listen to what he has to say.
Working together with our allies, because that is the only way that peace will last. Mr. President, in this new era, you're also right that Europe must step up. And let me tell you now, I see the growing threats we face, and so the UK is all in. This year we'll be giving more military aid to Ukraine than ever, and just this week I've set out how we're shouldering more of the security burden. We're already one of the biggest spenders in NATO. And
have you noticed, anybody who thinks this Ukraine war thing is a nothing burger, have you noticed how this is the focal point of pretty much every diplomatic engagement over the past 2 weeks? European leaders are scrambling, okay? Because what it all boils down to is Europe cannot survive without Russian resources. And of course, they don't want to have to deal with Vladimir Putin. Maybe they're just trying to wait him out, hoping that perhaps power will be usurped in Russia by somebody that they can puppeteer. Now, as I indicated yesterday, you may have missed, many people are very delusional about the prospect of the United States doing business with Russia. Everything that they can get from Russia, they can get from Canada, but only much, much cheaper, much safer, easier to transport, far more efficient, and you don't have to worry about arming somebody who is economically opposed to you. Okay, so forget about all that. The reason why the Russians are going along with it is because Putin they also know that day X, I used to talk about day X, I'm going to be bringing back day X in the conversation very soon. They all know what day X entails. That fateful day when there is an engagement between what won't be called NATO at the time, but will be Western forces versus Russian forces, and it's going to take place in Ukraine. That is going to be possibly a launching point for the events that are going to unfold that will be likely remembered as Day X, well, by me anyways, because they understand that this is an implacable situation. There's no going back, and both sides are trying to buy time, and the Russians benefit from Trump's theatrics in the short term. Their markets somewhat stabilize. Their people become a little bit hopeful. And if Trump reneges on the deal, then they can say, well, we tried, and those big bad Americans, we need to rally against them once again. All the while, the Russians are militarizing at a breakneck speed, at a pace that is much faster than the Europeans, as are the Chinese. And if you think that everything else has cooled down around the world, Iran is planning on tripling their uranium power output, their nuclear power output by 2029, which of course is going to entail an even broader stash of fissionable materials. And the Chinese are doing live fire exercises, massive live fire exercises, all the way from Taiwan down to Australia. The North Koreans are getting ready to streamline their nuclear deterrence process so that they can more swiftly and quickly react to various nuclear threats because of all the posturing with the United States and South Korea within the region. And then, of course, you have the multipolar tariffs that are currently coming in. We have 25% tariffs on Europe, 20% on China. This is going to crush people. Do you understand? This is going to completely devastate people. 25% on Canada and Mexico if it goes through. Now, I believe, once again, that this is part of Trump's negotiation style because he knows he needs to bring Canada on board because they got to go to war with the Russians. And they're doing these provocative NATO exercises up in the Arctic right now. That's another thing. There's so many moving pieces to this labyrinthine geopolitical play that to really try to communicate it. And this is why people accuse me of going on too many tangents. It's just how my brain works. I'm high level in my thinking in that I'm trying to factor in all of these different variables because that is how we're able to get the big picture. Okay, and that is how we're able to make effective prognostications about whatever future may come. What do we got going on here?
You've created a moment of tremendous opportunity to reach a historic peace deal. A deal that I think would be celebrated in Ukraine and around the world.
Now listen to the language. This is very Orwellian. Okay, incredibly Orwellian. Listen to the language.
That is the prize. But we have to get it right. There's a famous slogan in the United Kingdom from after the Second World War. That is that we have to win the peace. And that's what...
Win the peace. Think about that. We have to win the peace.
We must do now.
Peace is war. War is peace.
Now. Because it can't be peace that rewards the aggressor or that gives encouragement to regimes like Iran. We agree history must be on the side of the peacemaker.
So they've gone full on into the usual propaganda doublespeak, right? That we need to bring peace to Ukraine. You know, the same old, we need to liberate the Iraqis and Operation Iraqi Freedom. And they use the positive word, of course, in order to get there by any means, right? So that's the part that they don't say out loud, which is the fact that there's going to now be a bloody war and the UK is going to be implicated in it. And no, the United States is not leaving NATO. This is just silly. Just like, how Trump said, remember this one? Remember I told you that Trump calling Zelensky a dictator was a nothing burger and he didn't mean it? Well, let's just hear what Trump had to say about that today.
Mr. President, do you still think that Mr. Zelensky is a dictator?
Did I say that? I can't believe I said that. Next question.
Like he kind of grinned there.
Do you think that Mr. Zelensky is a dictator?
So the reporter asked him, "Did you say that Zelensky was a dictator?" And he explicitly stated that, guys. It's on 10,000 videos out there of him saying it.
Did I
Actually, I think he wrote it in a tweet is what he did. He called him a dictator in a tweet.
say that? I can't believe I said that. Next question.
So one of two things is happening. Either our boy's getting a little old, or he perhaps is just doesn't care anymore and is just saying whatever because he knows that there's that core base of his which is just going to believe anything, right? This is a notice from the White House on February 27th that states, and this is to do with Russia's sanctions, I believe, the actions and policies addressed in executive orders continue to pose an unusual and extraordinary threat to the national security and foreign policy of the United States. For this reason, the national emergency declared in Executive Order 13660, which was expanded in scope to 13661, blah, 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 must continue in effect beyond March 6, 2025. And I believe it was intended to be extended for another year. Now, people will say, it's just because of negotiations, right? He's just trying to negotiate. Well, what else has happened? Remember, he claimed that Putin would have to make concessions. This is the 180 that they've done in the last week. They claim that Putin is going to have to make concessions to end the Ukraine conflict, some of which are the partial return of lost Ukrainian territories to Russia, which is a non-starter. Not only are the Russians saying we're not going to give back territories, they still want Kharkov. They still want Odessa. Part of their whole ethos here is that they need to liberate the Russian people who are being subjugated by people they refer to, and rightly so in some instances, as Nazis, okay? And those people are suffering with oppression, and I'm quite certain that a lot of the people the commissars are hauling off the streets are probably Russians that they throw into the meat grinder to fight against other Russians, or at least Russian speakers. But I can't say that with certainty, but I can just surmise that on the basis of, all of the ideological struggles and the cultural and ethnic struggles that have arisen there. Support European peacekeepers in Ukraine with potential U.S. backing. Remember yesterday he made the comments that if our people are there working on mines or whatever it is they're going to do, then nobody's going to mess with them. And I was thinking about it today. It was a little bit of a mini epiphany. And I'm thinking to myself, wait a minute, if Ukraine has all this so-called mineral wealth, these are things that have been in demand for at least 10 years in the tech space. Why is it that these things haven't been tapped before? Why is it now only in the conversation? And the reality is, everybody who's analyzed this, even mainstream sources, say that the likelihood of the United States being able, in its current form, to build out the infrastructure there, when there are plenty of safer ventures that they could go and invest in, that don't require potentially getting into a world war. I mean, it's one of those situations where, okay, it's $100 billion or $350 billion if you use Trump's math. Cut your losses, right? Why wouldn't you just cut your loss? I mean, you've dumped $20 trillion on wars in the last few decades. I'm pretty sure, maybe that's a little bit overkill, but when you factor in everything, it probably is around there. What's really, at the end of the day, why are you trying to maintain a foothold in this situation when you know it's going to be a tripwire for more problems? So this whole thing is just a ruse. They're probably never even going to mine that stuff for years, okay? It's just an excuse to make sure that somebody in the West is represented and can potentially act as a human shield of sorts, as a tripwire, in order to potentially bring NATO into the war with Russia. And maybe it is going to, you know what I'm thinking right now? I had this weird inclination. I've had my heads in economics for the last week, and I got so many charts to show you guys today about how bad things are getting, and most people have no idea what's going to happen. But I'm thinking what they're going to do, they're going to do a cyber attack. Because the cyber attack, and if you haven't seen the show, what is it called? Zero Day. It's on Netflix. And it's with Robert De Niro. De Niro does a great job in the movie, but they made this movie in 2024, okay? And so it was predictive programming, like to a T. However, they have as the president a lady who kind of looks like Kamala Harris, played by Angela Bassett. She played the role very well as well. But the thing about a cyber attack is that there's so many levels of plausible deniability, and there's so many ways that you can use it to manipulate. If there's going to be a false flag, it's going to be a widespread cyber attack. And I think if things get uncontrollable And if it becomes so intractable that people are getting unruly, and Trump's base is even starting to reach the limits of their support and become disillusioned, then I think we are going to see them play that card. And then who are they going to blame it on? Who knows? It's really an open book. It really is one of the perfect types of false flag attacks because it's also somewhat victimless, with the exception of the people who perhaps are on life support and the hospital backup generators that might not kick in. But for the most part, it's something that has more delayed consequences, although in that movie, they show planes falling out of the sky, trains hitting each other, and that sort of thing. And I won't spoil the outcome of it's actually a show, it's a 6-part series. But in the end, you learn something incredibly sinister, okay? And it affirms what I just said, put it that way. It almost seems like if we're not talking about one of these disasters, be it agriculture, pestilence, pandemic, war, whatever one hasn't come up in a while is probably, it's like a roulette wheel of crisis, right? What hasn't happened in a while? Yeah, it's been a while since we've had a big cyber attack. I think that's probably what it's going to be. It's partly that, you know what I mean? Because it's always a black swan. The nature of it is something that completely catches you off guard and blindsides you. So, I don't know. I'm just getting those vibes that if things get uncontrollable, they will play that card. Now, of course, Trump also decided to reject lifting sanctions on Russia. So nothing has fundamentally changed. It's the exact same playbook. Now Trump says he's going to help the Ukrainians fight on. Zelensky is coming to town. He's already there, in fact. And his motorcade was caught on video. So he's heading to the White House to meet with Trump and sign this deal, whatever that means, ultimately. Lavrov's response, of course, has been very measured. And he's, of course, rejected any concessions for halting the conflict. He is the Russian foreign minister, if you didn't know, Sergei Lavrov. Dismissed the European peacekeeping plans as conflict escalation, accused the West of attempting to prolong the war, and demanding the return of Russian assets seized by the West. Now, when I look at how Vladimir Putin has been reacting to this whole thing, it's almost like he's acting like a dad with Trump. Because, look, if we're talking about Putin versus Trump, I'm sorry, man, but, Putin's got him beat. Probably not only in IQ, but just in his stratagem, like his ability to think about these things long term. And not only that, he's been in the driver's seat for how long? That's an advantage that Trump just simply doesn't have, okay? And I'm not saying that Kamala would have been any better, by the way, when I say that, or Joe Biden for that matter. They're just as one-dimensional. Although I'm willing to say that maybe Trump has a couple dimensions to him, all right? More than those guys. But it almost seems like he's dealing with Trump like Trump's like this unruly child. To be brutally honest, he's going along with it, but he knows that Trump is kind of just impetuous and flying by the seat of his pants, and he's kind of trying to maintain professionalism. And look at what we've become, guys. Look at what our society has become. And then you look at, how distinguished Russian politics is and how serious and professional it is. These are the influencers that got the Epstein binders today. What a joke. Like, talk about trivializing hundreds of thousands of children being victims of these sex crimes. And these guys are just making a big joke out of it so they can clout chase. And then when they got backlash for doing this stupid shit, right? And all of these binders are just a bunch of redacted nothing. Like, look at this. Like, this is all, where is this stupid crap here? I don't even want to, why even dignify it? And then they all got the same message that they cut and pasted on their profile. Like, how dumb can you be? You know what I'm saying? And I know it's a distraction. Like, look at this. Everything, there's whole pages that are redacted. Just like I said it was going to be a nothing burger. Everybody's like, oh, you're a black pill doomer. Have some faith. Okay, what now? What's next? How are they going to dupe us next, you dumbass? Let's see what this idiot has to say. Likely not going to be the next prime minister. That other guy who is about as interesting as watching the grass grow. What the hell's his name? Mark Carney or something? And yeah, if you don't think that that's going to happen, I regret to inform you. This is what's happening right now. Trudeau resigns. What did I say? Another accurate prediction of Nate. I said, when Trudeau resigns, watch what happens to the Conservative popularity. They're going to put somebody else in. And thanks to Trump, with all of that talk about sanctions, now the Canadians are all scared of Trump. So we got to keep the Liberals in. And we're scared that, Piev is going to be sig-hailing, whatever the hell they call it, like Elon Musk up there on stage. That's what they're worried about. Even though Pierre is married to an immigrant person of color, right? So everything is so backwards, The Conservatives are far more culturally liberal, I would say, than the actual liberals in our society. They're just common sense based. Like, boys shouldn't be beating up women in sports. I mean, like this, liberals, they always go too far. Like, you go too far, bridge too far, and then what happens? You get this crazy backlash, and it just makes you look like dumb. Like, yes, workers' rights are a good thing. People should be entitled to, not entitled, I should say, but people should be taken care of. We should care for people who need care, right? We should be generous, and there shouldn't be these crazy, wild wealth disparities as much as we're believers in the free market. These are sensible propositions. But then you start saying that some guy who thinks he's a woman one day gets to go and urinate in the washroom next to your 4-year-old daughter that you send in there. I mean, come on. It's just stupid, man. Everybody's fucking dumb. Like, God.
The U.S. is turning predator. And so what Canada needs to do is work closely with our democratic allies, our military allies. I've been foreign minister. I know how to do that.
Really? So you've been foreign minister for how long? So why do we have all these problems?
That's why I would start with our Nordic partners.
It's weird. She's not like doing her Hitler twitch like she usually does, where she's doing the Elaine Bennis dance. If you go watch her, she's having a full body spasm.
Specifically Denmark, which is also being threatened.
They must have her on some good drugs.
Our European NATO allies, I would be sure that France and Britain were there, who possess nuclear weapons, and I would be working urgently.
These are the people that want to take all of our guns, okay? And for all you guys who are like, oh, you got Trump derangement syndrome. You always think the world's going to end. Here I am telling you, I support the Conservative Party in Canada. Now. Not all the time, but now I do. And you're still going to write that dumb shit. I'm reaching my limit.
With those partners to build a closer security relationship that guarantees our security in a time when the United States can be a threat.
Okay, so Canada is going to support a new France-led nuclear umbrella. That's great. Yeah, France is going to protect us from Russia's massive stockpile of hypersonic, state-of-the-art nuclear weapons. Okay. So far, all of the meetings that these leaders have had with Trump, they've been good. I mean, by and large, there's been a few barbs back and forth with Macron and Starmer today, but overall, they've been very amicable. So, it's just business as usual. This is Zelensky's motorcade heading to wherever they're taking that guy. It's his plane. These are the Arctic exercises currently taking place in and around Norway. Joint Viking exercise, Dynamic Guard exercise, Arctic Dolphin. There's so many military exercises right now. And as my old saying goes, I haven't used it in a while, but there are no military exercises, only World War III disguises. In fact, I heard a general say that very thing, not in the same way, but in reference to China, that all these live fire exercises, that they're doing, they're getting bigger and more frequent, and it's getting to the point where they can't distinguish whether or not it's going to be real world or exercise. This is what Trump had to say about the tariffs. Drugs are still pouring into our country from Mexico and Canada at very high acceptable. Like, I mean, it's been a few days, bro. It's been a few days since these things have been put into place. It has nothing to do. If you actually think that these rapacious people think and care about, 100,000 people dying of fentanyl that they would just drive by and they wouldn't let get within, I don't know, a couple hundred meters of them, they don't give a shit about these people. And I'm not saying that from like, that Trump wants any of these people to suffer personally, or that he means them ill will per se. It's just a matter of apathy. It's just a general apathy that the population has for those types of people. And they're not entering a trade war that's going to completely decimate both economies and is going to have hundreds of billions of dollars in impacts. They're not going to do that because a few drug addicts are dying. I mean, if you believe that, like, you're not surviving. I mean, you guys aren't surviving the 95% of you, I have to say, but it's always those 5%. Those 5%. You're not surviving shit. Well, you might if you just keep your mouth shut and you just, stop typing that dumb shit in the comment section. This is a thermal power plant in, I believe it was in the Kharkov region, but I could be mistaken. So, there's a war going on. Massive live fire drills currently taking place in China. In and around the Philippines, there's some stuff happening today with Vietnam as well. So we got just massive, the Chinese are building ships at a crazy pace. It's not going to be long before they have more aircraft carriers in the United States because a lot of the U.S. equipment is getting decrepit and it's falling apart. North Korea has sent more troops to Russia, according to Seoul's spy agency. Well, the Russians are never going to confirm that. All the Russia bros will constantly deny it, but they're definitely there. I mean, it's been pretty normalized at this point. And why wouldn't the North Koreans want to send their human resources when it's just people eating up very rare and scarce resources in their own country? You might as well ship them off. During the latest test of strategic cruise missiles, the DPRK leader called for improving the combat readiness of strategic forces. Comrade Kim Jong-un noted that the most advanced deterrence and defense capabilities are guaranteed by a powerful offensive force. He emphasized that it's the responsible mission and duty of the nuclear armed forces to more consistently improve the combat readiness of the nuclear forces. So they want to get fully prepared and have an effective nuclear shield. And of course, they have a strategic arrangement with the Russians that is military in nature. So if one of them gets attacked, then they all go to war. So that's a pretty big deterrent on the South Korean front, that the United States likely won't initiate anything with North Korea because they know it entails a war with Russia. Not much more to say about the Epstein crap. Egg prices could jump 41% this year, 41% over what they are now. I have a sneaking suspicion that chicken is going to go up in price too. And not just the meat, but the actual bird, because people are going to start doing the backyard chicken thing. I know I am. We get the homestead all stead up and we're pretty much ready to go to put chickens in this year. So I'm looking forward to that. U.S. credit card loan defaults jumped to the highest since the Great Recession. We have pending U.S. home sales, which are lower than 2008 at the worst, most recent, in recent history anyways, recessionary period. Right now, there are a lot of foreigners currently buying U.S. stocks, okay? So there is a very large amount of people who are outside of the United States buying stocks. So that's what's been kind of propping up the stock market since 2020, in fact, as you can see. So right now it's at record levels and it's a very significant portion of the actual stock market. So it looks like about $5 trillion is the result of foreigners investing in the stock market, propping it up. Interest rate futures and options are at all-time highs. People are losing their minds. Crypto guy here on Twitter is losing his mind. He actually thinks that this is the beginning of a bull market. So bless his soul. Whatever remains of it. Iran's tripling their nuclear power generation by 2029. We already talked about that. Bitcoin fell through the 80,000 mark. I'm not sure what it is right now. It's still, oh yeah, it's below 80,000. People are going to start jumping out of windows, unfortunately. And what's gold doing? You know, gold's taken a little bit of a haircut, but it's a good haircut. I mean, gold is really only down probably, and when you factor in that the USD has increased about this same amount, the USD is almost up 1% this week. So if that almost erases this loss for today, so if you were to add another 1% to this, you're looking at, you know, about $30. You're sitting at about 2,900. Okay, so we're down about $50 on gold, but you know, on the whole, I mean, that's nothing. And the fact that it hasn't gone down that much, and if you look throughout the recent history of gold here, there's always, you know, it goes up and then it comes down, right? It goes up a lot and then it comes down. It retraces. And then it goes up and then it comes down. But it's always steady. And we've had a pretty good run here, which I knew had to end at some point. So this is healthy. This consolidation at this level here, I hate talking like one of those tech guys, but that's what this is. So, and the thing with gold is that it's hard to sell. And I always say this, and this is something that people take for granted. Crypto, the reason why it's so volatile, because it's so easy to sell. It's not easy to sell gold. And let's not forget that the United States has repatriated 2,000 tons of gold, okay? 2,000 tons. That is insane. That's like the amount of gold that France or England has. It's just an insane amount of gold. So, you know, there's a lot of shenanigans going on, but this most certainly is an indication, and historically, a move of even $50 in gold would have taken weeks, okay? The fact that, with the exception of some rare periods in history, of course, but typically those kind of moves in gold are very protracted. It takes a long time. But we're seeing these wild swings. I think what's happening is that they're manipulating the market in any way they can with paper, and then they're buying the dip that immediately falls thereafter. And then they do the same thing again. They try to slam the price, and then they buy. So right now, you can bet that they're most certainly buying. The premium on this stuff, in Asia in particular, is sky high, much higher than it is here. What does Elon have to say today? Ladies, it's time to start thinking whether the guy you're dating has post-apocalyptic warlord potential. Well, for starters, seeing Elon with his shirt off and knowing that the guy couldn't run a block if his life depended on it, I'm guessing that he's going to be relying on his bodyguards, that he's going to have to make sure he can keep under control when the shit hits the fan, all right? That is, I'm sure he's resourceful enough, and I'm sure he's good at managing people, so he'll probably be all right. But let's not forget that Mad Max was the guy who was fighting the warlords in the movie, right? So perhaps Elon has succumbed to that age-old turning of staying the hero too long and becoming the villain. I don't know. But yeah, ladies, you'll want to consider that. You'll definitely want to consider that. Now, in terms of the weather, what the weather is going to do, right now we're seeing record temperatures in North America, okay? And actually, we're going to see a major blast of heat come down. Typically, I'm no meteorologist, but typically this jet stream is going to carry this heat, or not the jet stream, but the heat is going to usually flow down into the United States. So that is coming in about 7 days, and that's going to be record high temperatures once again. The snow has been melting like crazy here. We've seen above average temperatures for the last week, and it's going to continue. And honestly, we deserved it because we've been in a polar vortex for the last God knows how long. So anyways, that's all I got for you guys today. If you want to support the channel and the people who work at Canadian Preparedness, go and gear up. If you don't, then that's just fine. Like, comment, subscribe, even if it's a nasty, negative comment, because at the end of the day, you know, what I found is that a lot of these people, I go and I can see how many times they've commented. A lot of them have commented hundreds of times. So what they don't realize is that they're supporting the channel. And what it also indicates is that they're coming back, right? So why would you come back to something that you despise? And I don't think they're bots. I think, because you know, that just wouldn't make sense. And if they are bots, hey, I'll take a view, even though I don't like a bot view, both literally and figuratively. Anyways, guys, thanks for watching.